Hey guys, so first of all, it's a big pleasure to be here. It's actually the first time for me here, and as far as I know, it's also a first official presence of the Zabbix company. So good to see you all. And a little bit about me before we actually get to talk about the topic. So what I do in the company, I guess the main thing is the technical support, and also the consultancy for our customers and for somebody who just want to purchase the services. Trainings, the professional Zabbix trainings for the specialist, professional, and also the expert. If you are working with a Zabbix and let's say you are struggling time to time with some functionality and you need some help or documentation or some guides you might already know, or perhaps you should look for it in the YouTube, in the Zabbix official YouTube channel. We do have a Zabbix series where I do cover quite a lot of functionality about the Zabbix and how-to manuals. If that is not enough, you can also find my own YouTube channel, just my full name, not be that complicated, where we also talk quite a lot about Zabbix. So now, about the topic, onboard diagnostics, monitoring with the Zabbix. And somehow my topic names already told that sound more complicated than they actually are, because we can simplify this to OBD monitoring with Zabbix. And some of you might already understand what we're talking about, and the more informational would be to tell OBD2. So long story short, we're talking about how to monitor your cars. Any cars, the ones that you drive to work, the one that might be used by your wife, child, or whatever else. But before we actually talk about OBD, I wanted to create a couple of slides and talk about what actually is Zabbix. I heard it many times today. Glad to hear that, but still in a couple of words. First of all, Zabbix is an open source monitoring tool. What does that mean? It means that it is absolutely free. So you don't have to pay any money to use it. We don't have any enterprise edition, no paid functionality or some limitation that would be available only for our paid customers. Everything is absolutely free. Enterprise level, scale, not a problem at all. Just a month ago around, we had a Zabbix summit in Riga, and I think it was the biggest installation that I've heard about is the company from Japan have around 100,000 NVPS. I'm not talking about the hosts, those are not the items, I'm talking about new values per second received and processed by the Zabbix server. And if we would talk about like more simple metrics like the amount of the hosts, the biggest that I know is around 500,000. Universal and flexible. Pretty often people ask, like, what's the biggest benefit of the Zabbix? And this is what I think. Like, it's very universal. You can adapt Zabbix, you can extend its functionality and monitor close to everything. We're not limited to, let's say, some networking gear, Windows or Linux operating system. Distributed monitoring. Zabbix is everywhere. So even for those cases when you do have multiple branches, let's say in the city, in the country, or it might be even a requirement to monitor multiple places in different countries. It is still possible to do all of that within one installation of the Zabbix server by using Zabbix Proxies, which basically serve as a gateway between the monitored environment and a Zabbix server. Configuration, so that might be the main question, like, okay, I can monitor the branches all over the world, but how will I manage the configuration? Still, everything is done centralized through the Zabbix frontend. So if you want to add some new items to be monitored in Riga, Germany, United States, or whatever else, it will be enough to open the centralized frontend and just add some new items that you want to collect. So, collect, react, store, and visualize. I would say basically it is a full scope of monitoring that anyone would need. So first of all, we collect the data. from any kind of data sources, may those be computers, sensors, applications, databases, network stuff, whatever else. Then we react. So it is possible to create the triggers and define exact problem situation for your case. We're not talking about like the most simple trigger expressions. If last received value is higher than something, it's a problem. But it is also possible to create something much more complicated, utilize multiple items from multiple hosts, utilize history data that will be stored in our database, and even predict the values for the future. Then store the data. Already mentioned that. So when we're doing the monitoring, we have triggers, we get the notifications about the problems or upcoming problems. It is not really a good idea to throw the data away because it is informational and it will help you like in the future. So you can always open the front end, open the graphs, choose the period for the graphs, compare the data between multiple hosts, multiple items, do some capacity planning based on the data that you collect. And visualize all of that stuff, of course, option A in a plain text, just raw values. You can see the graphs, you can create dashboards, you can utilize API or do the direct database queries and use the data in a third-party reporting tools. I know probably the first that comes to my mind is Power BI. Then, amount of the downloads, we actually don't know because again, product is free. If you want to get it, open Zabbix.com, click download button, download. That number will not appear in the downloads yearly. This number, as far as I know, is just from the SourceForge, so when you download the sources, then we see that. More than 20 years of experience, a lot of languages supported in the Zabbix frontend, some milestones of the monitored amount of devices, the metrics, and just like I mentioned previously, 100% open source. Then there comes the biggest question. In terms of the monitoring and in terms of my experience, like everybody knows that they need to do the monitoring. Yes, we're a new company, we are starting, and we need to monitor. So then the biggest question is, so what to monitor? And usually the companies ask us, please tell us, what do we need to monitor? And it's pretty easy, of course, to suggest some generic things like servers, network devices, Windows, Linux, virtual machines, something that is present and available in any company. But are we actually limited to that? Or perhaps we can monitor much more and collect much more interesting data. And when I was trying to figure the topic for today's speech, I didn't want to talk about something that everybody are used to, like the monitoring of the servers or the network devices. So I told the topic, monitoring of OBD2, before actually trying to do that. So the main thought and the main idea is to think outside of the box, and pretty often there are a lot of data that we can collect and which can, first of all, make our life simpler. So there are some couple of examples from what I've heard from, again, some of our users, customers, and other Zabbix people. The smart office monitoring, even if it's not very smart, you don't need to have like 100% smart office to do something. Simple example from the company who had smart windows. So they had sensors, and the window was designed so window opens and closes automatically. And then they added a Zabbix to monitor if window is still open and the working time, well, basically it's not a working time, so it should not be open, obviously. What to do? First of all, we can send, let's say, notification to somebody from the security that, hey, there's an open window in somewhere. Or perhaps our construction even allows to receive a remote command and close the window automatically. Another thing, collect humidity data from your plants. there was one gentleman who created a monitoring for his wife because she was very passionate about the plants at her home, and like humidity is always the big question, like is it enough or should I add more? So they just created a monitoring for it. Get notified about the discounts in your favorite store. Funny, but this story is about one Zabbix user who was monitoring the discounts on a local alcohol shop. So as soon as something was discounted, they received a notification about it. Industrial machinery. So simple example, supermarket, grocery store, there are big refrigerators, right? And what happens if one of those breaks overnight? And you basically need to throw everything in the trash in the morning, or maybe after a couple of days. And would it be nice if we would be actually monitor the temperature inside of it? And just think about how easy it is. What do you need? You need one sensor for the temperature and some device that will be able to pass this information. The most common that comes to my mind is a Raspberry Pi. And I've also used this in this OBD monitoring. So even onboard diagnostics monitoring. What it is, you can read the definition, like that's from the Google, from the official wiki page, but long story short, if you are, let's say, more or less deeper familiar with your car, so you not only do the driving, but also do some diagnostics, then you know that there is such plug, any car, different places where you can plug in the cable, or it might be just a module working through the Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth. Then you usually have some kind of the application that is able to tell you information. Like what kind of information, problem codes, so what happened with your car, and also real-time data from most of the sensors that are available in your car. The versioning. This moment, I believe all of us are driving with OBD2. The oldest that, at least from my experience, that I myself drove is the one like, think about like when you're doing a diagnostic on a modern car, let's call it like that, you get a computer with a screen with the error messages, descriptions, what it is, what it means, how to fix that. In the older releases, basically you had to connect 2 pins in one of the wires, and then the light would start blinking in the dash. And amount and the frequency of the blink meant the error code. Then you could go to the Google, search what does it mean, 3 quick beeps, 1 long beep, and understand what is actually happening with your car. In a simple words, this is what I'm talking about. When you're driving your car and you see this light, not only this, that's just the most common example, I guess, that everybody are afraid of. Because what do we usually do when we see that light? Depends. Somebody might keep on driving without even noticing. Somebody might stop immediately and, I don't know, called somebody for the maintenance, because despite the fact car is driving, something's wrong with an engine. And what else? Somebody might have some diagnostic tools with them, and they would do a quick troubleshooting. And the more interesting fact is sometimes you get some light on your dash and really nothing happens. You can continue to drive and without even feeling any consequences. And sometimes you get something called a limp mode, when you're basically physically limited to speed up something around 60, 70 kilometers per hour, and your gearbox might be working a little bit differently, so that starts to become very scary. How do our dash actually knows that the engine is gone and we actually need to check? Each of our cars has, first of all, ECU, which is electronic control module, and then a lot of sensors. Of course, depends from the car itself, depends from the year of the production. Is it a diesel or is it petrol? different sensors. And these all sensors are connected to the ECU, and they report the data. Of course, the ECU has its own, like this car software, which let's say that, what could be the example? Timing advance, or easier one, temperature. Temperature should be in the range of A and B, and if the temperature is outside of this range, it will produce a new light in our dash. Sometimes it happens because temperature is actually outside of the range. Sometimes sensor just breaks and we receive some unmeaningful data, like minus 999. Then, how can we actually get this data? Okay, we know that ECU knows it. We talk about some diagnostic softwares and wires, but we need to get, for this example, inside the Zabbix. And yes, there is ECU, yes, there is OBD2 plug, and there is Zabbix. What to do with it? Not clear. So we need to find something that will be able to plug here in the middle. And the solution for that is ELM 327, which is, that's a known thing. It's nothing new. You don't need to create something on your own. Basically, it serves as a gateway between the ECU, OBD2 interface, and our computer protocol, and something that we can understand and use in our programs, as example. And that's how you might know it, let's say. Maybe some of you already have this, and there are quite a lot of these adapters and modules that you can buy. The most common place, I don't know, Amazon, eBay. I've used exactly this one in my test, and it costs around $3 or $5. So it's absolutely nothing. And what you need to worry about, you see this one is mini, ELM 327 mini, and I believe that's the main problem why I was not able to get all the metrics the car has. Just the most generic ones. Yes, I could read the error codes, I could read speed, RPM, and temperature, but not more advanced stuff like intake pressure, the timing advance, and stuff like that. When you usually buy this, with this you also get some application on a mobile phone. You could get a wired version and get an application on your computer, so you can start to monitor it, right? But what's the limitation? If we're doing it like that, we always have to be in the machine, in the car. We must connect our computer, we must connect our phone, look on the data. If, let's say, we're talking not about our own car, but about a company, let's say taxi company, of course it's not an option. So we need to move forward. And what do we do with all of this? First of all, we receive the trouble codes. That is the one, the check engine light, which, by the way, is not always let's say, critical or dangerous. There might be some real serious problem with your car, or it might be something absolutely simple, like the typical example from older diesel cars. If you forget to connect the glow plugs, let's say you did some maintenance and forgot to put them on, it will create a check engine light. You might call the maintenance and spend like a lot of money, or you could open the diagnostic screen and see that, hey, there's something with the glow plugs. Oh, right, I forgot to connect it. Put it back on, and the light disappears. Live data from the sensors: speed, RPMs, temperatures, pressures, timing, and also what we can do, clear the stored error codes. I did not thought any good reason why you would want to do that like in real time, despite the fact that it's possible, but yeah, you can do that. Then, how to actually grab the data? This is the URL that helped me. Python OBD, which you can just pip install OBD on your computer, and this URL also has some generic documentation. It's really simple. I'm not a developer at all. I don't write any script. I did that just in a couple of minutes. As example, we can see here, so Yeah, these are the operations we can use, and basically for this example, we need just from the bottom obd.commands. That's all we will be using in this example. Time for the Zabbix. Do we need some new functionality, something from, let's say, Zabbix 5.0 integration with OBD2? No. Do we need expertized knowledge of the Zabbix, let's say the expert certificate and 10+ years experience? Not at all. Do we need never-ending scripts and continuous support from our developers to maintain all of this stuff, let's say not only for one car, but also in scale for our company? Again, no. So that's it. That's the script that you need to, first of all, get the data from your car. Second thing, send this data to the Zabbix. Couple of lines, and I'll try not to fall. So this part is responsible to send the data to the Zabbix, and this part is collecting the data from our ECU. And you can even see like what the data: RPM, speed, intake pressure, coolant temperature, intake temperature, and a little bit more. Then the Zabbix sender. So in the Zabbix frontend, we need to create, of course, the host for our car, then the items, and the item types will be the Zabbix Trapper. So those items are created to accept the data sent exactly by the Zabbix sender. So in the Zabbix sender part, what we define, this is the host, BMW. Then we need to define the key of the item, which will come based from the OBD command, which was in the previous slide, maybe RPM, speed, or something else, and then the received value. This runs in the background, frequently collects new data from ECU, and sends it to the Zabbix. Then comes the problem. The problem comes because of the guy who created OBD2 for the Python. Every received value looks like this. This is just for, let's say, troubleshooting. Normally, when everything is set up, you don't receive anything in a CLI. For the troubleshooting, it looks like this. This is the value. Speed equals 92.0 kilometers per hour. These kilometers per hour, revolutions per minute, they are not allowing us to, first of all, visualize the data on the graphs. On the second hand, they're not allowing us to process it with the triggers because those are not integers, it's text. So what can we do? We can, first of all, extend the functionality of our script, which is also very easy, or we can use a native functionality of the Zabbix, the pre-processing, and we could do JavaScript. I decided to do the regular expression and extract just digits because it's a float, so it's a capturing group, and get a first one. Whole group of what?
You're capturing the whole group?
Yes, digit, like 92.0. I am skipping the kilometers. And in the result, this is what we get in the Zabbix. Items, I've created them manually. I was doing this just for the test, but we actually could also populate our Python script with an API to the Zabbix to, first of all, let's say, create a host automatically. So what we do in our company, we just deploy the installations on the cars, which get access to the internet, automatically connect to the Zabbix, automatically create a host, create items, and start collecting the data. Then, triggers. So what to do with this data? Seeing it in the dashboard is pretty cool, but what else? What's the idea? Why do I need it? And the most common things that came to my mind, like the average speed. Let's say if you are giving your, I don't know, car to your kid or whoever else, and you are a bit worried about speeding. Wouldn't it be nice if you would receive that somebody is, I don't know, speeding average more than last 20 minutes? You would receive a notification that this driver is running like 150 instead of 90. Yeah, unfortunately, we're gladly, because in Latvia we're like pretty limited. engine temperature is higher than it should be. So this could be some problem on the engine. DTC, so error codes, receive it on your email, or on your mobile phone, or whatever else. Requested actual reading differs for more than X. So there is always something that is requested. Let's say our ECU requests 1 bar of intake pressure, and the actual value might be 0.5 because something is broken, and we would want to receive it. Who might use this? Again, let's think about the good old taxi company who, let's say some maintenance employees, they received that something is broken on a car 59, that something is intake pressure, plus the driver was speeding for the last week, so please react. 1 car per server? No, not at all. Use Zabbix Proxies. Remember I mentioned them in the beginning, so we're not limited at all to the amount. Lightweight and ready for embedded devices. I'm talking about a proxy. There is also a database to store the backlog if, let's say, we're talking about cars which might be deriving in different places and the internet connection might go out. Choose direction of connection, so the proxy could be both active and a passive, so pushing the data or receiving the data from the server. Centralized configuration in 1 single front end, and we do have official packages for the Raspbian. This is how it might look like. So we have 1 centralized Zabbix server, and let's pretend that any red dot circle is one of the monitored cars that we have in the city, which could also be in different countries, as example. And yeah, like this is just a fake picture, but it is also possible to integrate Zabbix, let's say, with an OpenStreets map and actually display this inside your dashboard. How to install Zabbix in car? That's what I did. I used the Raspberry Pi because easy to use, low power consumption, don't need to worry about it at all. Possibility to extend. This is probably the most coolest part about this, so this one. Availability to add additional sensors. As example, GPS. And the interesting fact is the next speech after me, I think it will be also covering some stuff about GPS monitoring in the cars. So, official Zabbix packages, already mentioned it. What additional data from the sensors? GPS, maybe the car should not be moving at all. It would also be like more accurate data for the speed. Movement sensors, tilt sensors, maybe there was a car accident. Smoke sensors, maybe it's like really unfortunately and hopefully not on fire. In the conclusion, the main questions are, is it really worth it? Is it expensive or complicated? For me, it costed, I don't know, the price of Raspberry Pi plus ELM adapter, which was 3 or 5 euros or dollars, I don't even remember. So, really cheap. At least, let's say, for your car. Will this data be useful for you? What kind of problems might be? Like, is it worth it? For me, yes, I have 2 cars. One is a daily car, one is a project car, and in the project car I will be adding in mostly because right now I have like all of my dash with various sensors and a lot of the readings. It would be better to have it like in 1 digital screen, plus receive like the history of the data. All right, almost in time. Any questions? Thank you.